so I moved back down here and started to wonder like, well, how else can I impact people, right? Like I wanted to, like everybody, leave the world a better place. And I thought nonprofit. So I got into nonprofit and I was fundraising for a large nonprofit and doing a great job with it. And was making about $31,000 a year and working my butt off, right? Like so dedicated to
You
the
wanted
cause.
to say ass. It's okay. You can say ass.
Thank you. And I went in after I raised a ton of money for an event and I asked for a raise. And I was like, hey, I know that we're a nonprofit, but I think that I deserve $33,000 a year. And this is my business plan for it. And I know. And it took 5 months. And finally they were like, oh yeah, we're sending you a bonus check. And I was all excited. And then it came in the mail and it was $10.
Get the hell out of here. Stop it.
Swear.
Stop it.
I swear. I had raised
Wait,
hundreds.
Hold on. Time out. Wait, $10?
Yeah, signed by the president of the company and everything. So that was my
This was 1973. $10
this was like
right?
2015, 2014, 2015.
Oh,
yeah. So that came in and
that's an insult.
Yeah, I mean it's a slap in the face. And honestly, at that time I was still very much in my recovery from my brain injury. And during that, time with the brain injury, I wasn't able to do quick math. I wasn't able to hold intelligent conversations. I couldn't find my words. I had some things, they didn't notice it. I noticed it. My parents noticed it, but everybody else was like, oh, this girl's fine. So for me, my sense of worth, knowing like who I was before and who I was then, I was like, well, maybe I'm only worth, 30.
Oh no.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Oh,
it's insane.
Lord.
So I started feeling better, right? And that's when I asked for that raise and was, starting to come back to who I am, my normal Chelsea self that I've been since I was born, driven little shit, basically. And the $10 comes in and
driven little shit. It's the name of your episode. You just named your episode right there. I'm not kidding.
Pretty much what my parents have called me my whole life. But yeah, so the check comes in and that was the end for me.
Welcome to the Rockstars Rocking podcast, powered by Voluntary Disruption, a show dedicated to people who are crushing their business and life goals. These are bite-sized conversations with leading rock stars in their respective industry who are pumped to share their story to help drive you to the next level. So, are you ready to rock? Speaking of rock stars, here's your host, Eric Silverman.
Hey, rock stars, welcome back to another episode of Rockstars Rocking, where you know it, I say it every single week. We only have the finest, the most exceptional rock stars rocking it out in their personal business and daily life, goals, you name it. And we're going to talk about it today. And this week is no exception. I'm super excited and pumped up to talk a little sports and benefits with my good friend out of the Orlando, Florida area, originally from Canada. And that is the one, the only, newly married, less than a year, I believe, Chelsea Ryckis. What's up, Chelsea?
Hi, how are you?
I am living the dream. If I was any better, I'd be Donovan. How about that? That's a cool answer. Got to work a bit early, right?
That was pretty good.
That was pretty good. Hey, Donovan. For those that don't know, Donovan is her new husband. And you had mentioned offline that he doesn't get all the spotlight because he doesn't like it or enjoy it, I guess, as much as you do. But I've hung out with him. He's pretty cool. He's chill. He should definitely get some spotlight. My first question for you, I want to lead right in, is what's the power of partnerships when it comes to business? I mean, I don't even understand how you can work together and be married and live together. I mean, that's 24/7. My wife and I would drive each other nuts.
Yeah, we get that question a lot, and oftentimes it'll be kind of off to the side, like, so how is it working together? And people want these like juicy conversations of like, oh, it's awful. But honestly, it's amazing. What's really interesting is that prior to us, being in a relationship, we were business partners. So we've always respected each other, number one, and seen value in what the other person brings to the table professionally. And then that morphed into something more personal. But yeah, no, we love it. And I think it works because we are good at different things. So he is very much the financial, the strategy, our self-funded guru. That is his role. And then my role is very much going to be operations, tech, the human aspect of everything that we do, communications. So we stay out of each other's way. But I think most importantly, we fill each other's gaps and we can really enhance the overall experience. It's funny. We've had employees say like working for one of you would have been really interesting, but working for both of you, like this works. We have clients say the same thing, they go to him for certain things, come to me for other stuff.
So was it something that you guys thought about, to put some effort into thinking, hey, how is this going to work to be together, get married and be in business, or it was just all natural and it worked?
Yeah, no, zero intention, which is funny because it truly does work so well. But it all happened business related, and it was about the clients. And it's funny, we've been together now, I want to say 6 or 7 years. And, Eric, like you just mentioned, we only got married last year because everything has been so focused on the business and the client experience and growth. And so finally we were like, I guess we should do this thing, but he was a financial advisor, and he was working with a lot of business owner clientele. And one of them came to him, and it was a smaller client, 50, 60 employees, and they'd gotten a pretty nasty renewal. They were with a large publicly traded agency, and they came to Donovan because he had been doing work for them in other areas and just said, man, healthcare is tough. Can you do anything with this? So he actually applied a lot of the same fiduciary principles that he was doing as a financial advisor, and, went to a ERISA-based healthcare plan, brought it to them, created about a 13% savings the first time. And what he noticed the most was the lack of transparency and the lack of aligned interests. And that really started to motivate him. Right around the same time, I was knocking at the door in my Colonial Life days, trying to find broker partners and be an enrollment firm.
Wait, is that how you met him? Was you were trying to sell him on working with you and your business there?
Isn't that funny? Actually,
That's
I had
awesome.
his best friend and asked him like, hey, do you know any health brokers that might be, in need of some enrollment support? And he hooked us up, which is pretty funny. But at the beginning, like I said, it was strictly professional. So this, for one of his first clients, some of the feedback that he got is like, man, you're really good at designing these programs and these ideas. But we need a little bit more for our employees, right? We need some other, I'll call it like a finesse, right? Like a little bit of a human touch. So that's where I came in. So we started partnering on cases like that. I would handle enrollments, tech, employees, and then he would, do the strategy. Well, it worked out really well. So about 3 or 4 months into it, he looked at me and was like, you want to just do this thing? And I was like, what do you mean? He's like, come be a partner. And he's like, 50-50. I can see that I need you and, you need me. Let's do it. So we jumped head in and haven't looked back since.
Oh man, I'm gonna say that's adorable. I just gotta say it.
Fell in love at a hopeless place in insurance.
That is hopeless romance right there, 101. That's amazing. All right, well look, let's go back a little bit, right? So as a little girl growing up in Calgary, Canada is where you grew up. I think you were born in Montreal, but you grew up in Calgary. Did it ever cross your mind that, mom, dad, grandma, I want to sell insurance for a living? Is that the words that came out of young Chelsea when you were 10 years old, or probably not? You tell me.
Well, what I did tell them was I wanted to be the first female prime minister of Canada elected. There had been a prime minister female of Canada, but she wasn't elected. So that was my big thing growing up, was I was absolutely going to be the first female prime minister.
Prime minister, selling insurance, similar.
Yeah, like almost right there, right? And then the second thing was I was going to be the first female to play on the New York Yankees.
That I can get behind, except I don't like the Yankees, but I can get behind the whole baseball thing.
No, I did not intend, like many, to end up in insurance. But what I did know was I wanted to own my own business. Okay. So I watched my mom and dad growing up. They run Wally's Four Seasons Roofing. My brother's in the business too, my twin brother. And I grew up picking up shingles around houses during the summer. I was doing marketing as like a 10-year-old for my dad. So I had these little flyers and I'd walk around the communities and put them in the mailboxes and tell them how great my dad was and that they should do business with him. So he was always at my baseball games. my mom too, right? They didn't miss a beat. And I thought that that was because they made their own decisions. And I don't like anyone telling me what to do. So I knew for sure I wanted to have my own business, but never, aspired to be a benefits advisor.
So talk about that. And I don't know if anybody caught that, because I have a keen ear and sense for the word baseball and softball. You said you were playing baseball. I love that. My daughter played baseball until she was 10. She would have kept going, but it was her choice, by all means. She decided she wanted to switch to softball, and she's a rock star softball player. She's 14 now, and she's excited to try out for high school next year. She'll be a freshman. Talk about sports growing up. Baseball to begin with, I believe, and then you transitioned to softball, and you excelled pretty well. Talk about that a little bit.
Sure. Well, I have a twin brother, and my goal in life was always to keep up with him or be better than him. And he is incredibly athletic. So we would grow up playing street hockey, volleyball, every sport that you could possibly imagine. Him and I were playing together before we even, got to collegiate or like high school sports or anything like that. So very competitive, very focused on athletics, and just tried to keep up with him. So one of the first sports he got involved in was baseball. My dad was coaching him, and it was Bonus Little League in Calgary, Alberta, Canada. And there were no girls in the league, but I was the first one to try out and made the team. And the first couple of years I was pretty terrible, I'll be honest. Doesn't sound like your daughter where she was exceptional, and but I was able to keep up with the boys. I could throw harder than most of them. I was usually the closer pitcher that they would bring in, and that was super fun. And then I started to get a little bit older and better, thank God. But you started to hear like, well, you can only go so far. The guys are going to get a lot bigger than you. You're going to get hurt. I was also playing competitive volleyball at the time. And I was, trying to make a decision between volleyball and softball, because, you start to get told when you're a certain age that like you need to specialize, right? I was also really into musical theater, so singing, performing, acting. So I kind of came to this crossroads where I had to pick between sports and drama, or drama as we call it in Canada. But I was playing with my brother a lot and really enjoying that. And then when I was told like, hey, you're not going to be on a national team for boys baseball. You're not going to play with the New York Yankees. You're not going to get a scholarship to the States or anything like that. So the option was to play girls softball. It was a devastating transition for me. I remember going to the first girls softball practice, and I left crying, and was like, thank God I'm mad because I threw too hard. And at that time it was indoors, right? Because there's a very long winter in Calgary, Alberta. So it was springtime, but it was still not able to play outside. So we had just spent an hour inside the gym. The ball was so big, I was throwing it over everybody's head, trying to change your swing to adjust for a rise ball instead of a pitch coming down was very difficult. But I eventually figured it out. I've learned to love playing with the girls. They were amazing. I had some incredible people impact my life that would take me, to college scouting camps all over the country, all over the States. I played travel ball, and then it eventually led to a D1 scholarship, which was really neat.
That's awesome. So back up for just a half a second. We're in the year 2023. You don't have kids yet. You have a daughter, in my example, right? She's coming to that same crossroads. Do you think we're in I guess it'd be 10 years from now or more, but are we going down the road of, it's going to be girls playing baseball longer, I hope, or do you think it's still going to be the same old way it always has been?
I would love to say that I think that, girls will be able to play baseball and at that more competitive level and whatnot, but from my experience transitioning into softball and playing with the girls and getting to the elite level that I did, there's nothing more empowering. So I think that just because the infrastructure is there, like look at the College World Series, just how intense and the viewership all over the world, the sport is growing. And I think that, if you want to make it as far as you possibly can and make the biggest impact in it, that's the way to go.
Yeah. Yeah. No, and it pains me to agree with you, but I totally get it. I was just curious your opinion. So you're playing college softball. You went to Stetson in Florida, not too far from Orlando, where you are now, I believe. And you had a challenge happen, a health challenge. Talk about that for a minute, because I'm curious if that health challenge led to you taking more of an interest in the employee benefits world?
Yeah, indirectly it did for sure. My senior year was my best year actually in college softball. Was leading in home runs, RBIs. I was the team captain. I was just wrapping up my pre-med program and started to get accepted into different med schools. Very exciting time for me. The right before conference play started, it was a totally freak accident. One of the girls on my team had overthrown the ball. I was jogging by it, so she overthrew the fence and it hit me. The ball hit me in the side of the head. She was doing long toss, which for pitchers, you're standing hundreds of feet away and you're just tossing the ball underhand as hard and as high as you possibly can. So the ball came down, freak accident again, hit me on the side of the head. I go down. My immediate reaction, do you edit out cuss words on this?
No.
Okay, good.
You're welcome to say whatever you want.
It's like, this is who I am. I remember thinking, holy shit, I think that was a ball. Oh my God, a ball just hit me in the head. You're fine. Act like you're fine. Everything's fine. Just get up, right? So I remember getting up and then falling back down. They took me into the training room and it was pretty obvious I had a concussion.
Sure.
Unfortunately, was cleared to play the next day against our opening series for the conference. And a lot of factors went into that, but ultimately it was a terrible decision. Hit my head again, and it was pretty much lights out after that. So I had a really hard time finishing my senior year. I was definitely in the running to be considered for valedictorian with my grades and everything. And it was kind of just like your life crumbles around you, right? Your whole identity is being this 4.0 pre-med captain of the softball team. And then everything was gone. I couldn't attend class, or if I did, I had these huge sunglasses on. I didn't know what was going on around me. I needed earplugs in constantly. It was a rough time. So ended up having to go back to Canada and get treatment there because I had graduated. My health insurance through the school was up, and obviously I wasn't going to school. I couldn't even hold a conversation. So I went back home to Canada and entered in a functional neurology brain injury rehab program. And if you know hockey, it's the same one that Sidney Crosby did.
Okay.
And it was 4 or 5 days a week, incredibly expensive. It was not through the healthcare system. I actually waited 4 months just to get in to see a neurologist in Canada. And at the time, like when this happened to me, it was 2013. So we were just starting to really focus on athletes and concussions, right? The movie Concussion came out shortly after, but it wasn't what it is now, where there's so much awareness around, the sports medicine side of it and the long-term impacts on people. So I had post-concussion syndrome. Not a lot of people knew what that was. So I was telling doctors, I was telling people how I was feeling, and everybody was like, oh no, just belittling constantly. It made me feel like I was crazy, like I could tell something was wrong with me. And the only people that really knew were my parents. When I came back from college, they were like, who is this girl? Like, where did our Chelsea go? Yeah, it was very strange. My personality completely changed. I only felt okay if I was in like a dark room. If a TV.
Were you battling depression?
Definitely. But that was more of a, yeah. And I think actually, that's an interesting topic too, because student athletes, when they graduate college, if they don't have a good support system and a really good direction for where they're going and whatnot, I think a lot of people will battle depression regardless. Mine definitely came as a result of, losing what I perceived to be like everything important to me at that time. Right.
Sure.
But it was truly, light. So like photosensitivity, audio sensitivity, constant headaches and migraines, dizzy. I'd try to work out. It was too much. And, you don't get to be, a lot of people you don't become a D1 athlete and a 4.0 GPA if you're not a type A person most of the time. Right. There's some exceptions for that, but very, very driven, very focused. So to not be able to have control over my life and, to feel like you worked so hard for something and it was gone was very challenging. So that started the road to recovery. And it took about so the actual brain injury rehab program was 8 or 9 months, improved immensely throughout that time. And then ended up moving back to the States And I was like, well, if I'm not going to save lives in medicine, I'm going to save lives a different way. So I got into.
So time out on that for a second, because we're going to transition into benefits, but you said you were studying pre-med. So what did you want to do? What was the goal prior? Goal wasn't sell insurance. So what was the goal?
Yeah, I think I've always been a very achievement oriented person, like I took a lot of pride in the awards I won, like athlete of the year, valedictorian of my high school, that type of thing. And I think little me was so accustomed to getting attention and recognition for excelling, right? For just being that person that was going to be the best at absolutely every little thing she did, that I was like, well, what would everybody else think is the coolest job in the world, or like the most respected or the most prominent? And it came down to a doctor. So to me, it was like, oh, if I'm going to be the best in the entire world at something, like what's something that everybody else gives a shit about? And I picked doctor. I don't think that, now being that like I'm healed from my brain injury, I run my own business, I'm very aligned with who I am. I don't actually think like college Chelsea wanted to be a doctor. I think it was very much outside circumstances, but I did want to be a doctor. For probably a lot, like I'm just being vulnerable, for the recognition and the prestige around it. Obviously helping people, that's a huge part of it too. But I was going to do a naturopathic doctorate and a combined chiropractic doctorate. So I've always been very holistic in my approach to medicine. But yeah, that was the plan.
I mean, look, I appreciate the vulnerability, but there is 100% legitimacy to what you said. Let's just call a spade a spade. If you're not married and you go home to somebody's family and say, what do you do for a living? It's definitely a big deal to say I'm a doctor versus selling insurance. Let's just be honest here, how the perception is reality. Now, with that said, we are changing lives. We are saving lives in the benefits world. You, I, and all of our multiple connections, colleagues, friends, mentors in the industry that we have in common. So talk about that. So now your doctor path is done, right? You're in the recovery program. You've moved back to Florida, and you're trying to figure out what's next, right? Talk about how you landed into the benefits world and how your brain injury kind of helped with your understanding of benefits and the importance of it, particularly in the US.
Yeah, I think the big part of like insurance and the brain injury story is going to be when I went back to Canada and I was going through the rehab program and I started to get these bills from these hospitals. And I'm like, how do they know where I am?
Well, hold on, right? And I'm saying something kind of being sarcastic, but everybody listening, benefits people probably know this. I hope they know this. Canada, it's free. It's free in Canada. What do you mean bills? Come on now.
Yeah, well, these bills were specifically from the hospitals that I was visiting in the States, like
okay. All right.
The MRI process. Yeah. But, to your point, free has a cost. And most of the time that cost is time.
Sure.
But I started to get these, bills from hospitals in Florida. And I'm like, wait, Mom, what? Like, what is this? Like, I don't understand, growing up where you go to the hospital and it's covered, you go to the doctor, it's covered, you're never paying anything more. Yeah, that was very strange. And so I moved back down here and started to wonder like, well, how else can I impact people, right? Like I wanted to, like everybody, leave the world a better place. And I thought nonprofit. So I got into nonprofit and I was fundraising for a large nonprofit and doing a great job with it. And I was making about $31,000 a year and working my butt off, right? Like so dedicated to
you wanted to say ass. It's okay. You can say ass.
Thank you. And I went in after I raised a ton of money for an event and I asked for a raise. And I was like, hey, I know that we're a nonprofit, but I think that I deserve $33,000 a year. And this is my business plan for it. And I know. And it took 5 months. And finally they were like, oh yeah, we're sending you a bonus check. And I was all excited. And then it came in the mail and it was $10.
Get the hell out of here. Stop it.
I swear. I had raised hundreds of dollars.
Hold on. Time out. Wait, $10?
Yeah, signed by the president of the company and everything. So that was my
this was 1973. $10
it was like
right?
2015, 2014.
Oh my
2015.
God.
Yeah. So that came in and
That's an insult.
yeah, I mean, it's a slap in the face. And honestly, at that time, I was still very much in my recovery from my brain injury. And during that, time with the brain injury, I wasn't able to do quick math. I wasn't able to hold intelligent conversations. I couldn't find my words. I had some things, they didn't notice it. I noticed it. My parents noticed it, but everybody else was like, oh, this girl's fine. So for me, my sense of worth, knowing like who I was before and who I was then, I was like, well, maybe I'm only worth, 30.
Oh no.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Oh,
It's
good
insane.
Lord.
So I started
Oh,
feeling better, right? And that's when I asked for that raise and was, starting to come back to who I am, my normal Chelsea self that I've been since I was born, driven little shit, basically. And the $10 comes in and
driven little shit. It's the name of your episode. You just named your episode right there. I'm not kidding.
pretty much what my parents have called me my whole life. But yeah, so the check comes in and that was the end for me. The Colonial Life had been the sponsor of my event and they were like trying to recruit me the whole time, but I had made insurance out to be, only where like crooked people work or the bad, dark corporate side of the world that I never wanted to be a part of, and convinced myself I was too good for it. Well, ended up going into Colonial Life, working under another lady, eventually opening up my own office, had about 15, 20 agents working for me. And it was a blast. I loved it. I loved the people building part. But eventually, the captive model just wasn't for me. I don't want to have to hit numbers. I don't want to have to, hit certain metrics. I like that actually, obviously, like the competitive part, but the doing what's in the best interest of the client part, as opposed to pushing my own agenda, wasn't there. And that's right when I met Donovan. And it was kind of the perfect time to go independent and truly align with what I wanted to do.
I can't get over $10 as a bonus.
So I have it framed in my office, my home
Oh
office.
my gosh, are you serious?
Yeah, along with a few other what I'll call FUs that have come up in my career, and it's kind of my perfect little motivator wall. But never. So here's the thing: never
Did you cash the check?
Hell no.
Good.
No, I did not cash the check. No, let nobody tell you your worth. That is like my biggest thing, and part of all the female empowerment and the coaching that I try to do for others and my own employees is know your worth and obviously have the skill set to get it.
Wow. $10 and okay. All right.
You can't make that up. It's like too good.
It just sounds crazy. If you would have said 100, I still would have the exact same reaction, to be honest with you. I don't know, maybe it would have taken 1,000 before I would have been like, okay, but 10 anyway. All right, let's move on. So you went over to the insurance employee benefits world. They were sponsoring you. We've talked about him so much. I think Tim Arnold needs to sponsor this. I had Tim Arnold on last year. He's a good friend, good dude. For those that don't know, check that episode out. Great episode. CEO, president of Colonial Life. So you're trying to basically sell Donovan on working with you and using you and everything as as benefit enrollment and communication and so forth. So you end up becoming a partner. You end up starting a business. And what was the original name of the business when you met Donovan?
So his company was J. Donovan Financial. I was Colonial Life. Obviously, I wasn't taking that name.
J. Donovan Financial, suit and tie, prim and proper.
You want to hear a really good story?
Yeah.
So I asked him, I remember when I first met him, like, so his name is Donovan. It's not Joseph. It's not Jay. People calling all the time, like, I'd like to speak to Jay. And we're like, you don't know us. So no. J. Donovan Financial. It confused everybody, right? Like, is Donovan his middle name? What is it? Is Donovan his last name? I wish, because
Right.
how cool would Chelsea Donovan sound? But
It does sound cool.
right. So I asked him, like, where did this come from? Right. And why are you confusing the shit out of everybody? And he, like most financial advisors, right? Like you kind of name the company after yourself. Well, when he Googled like Donovan Joseph, Florida, it was like the most prolific rapist in Florida history came up on Google. And he was like,
Yikes.
not going to do that one. So I'm glad from a marketing perspective that he didn't, because that was a terrible person, terrible crimes, and it definitely would have pulled up on Donovan Joseph. So
wait, so I'm confused. So Joseph is his middle name?
yeah, exactly.
Okay, all right.
Case in point.
So he switched it. Okay. J. Okay. Got it. And you know what? It does sound like a financial firm, Jay Donovan. Now you come in, you're a marketing genius, you're creative, and you're like, this ain't happening. We need to do some type of rebrand. This is awful. Sorry, Donovan. Excuse me, Joseph, Jay. Talk about that rebrand, because I got to tell you, I love the company, Ethos Benefits. I love the name. I love the whole rebrand. I love the design. Where did it come from? Who helped you? Did you do it yourself? Like, let's talk about that, because it is not easy to do a rebrand. I've done it myself. It's a pain in the butt. Excuse me, ass. I can say it. And and frankly, it's expensive and time consuming.
You are not wrong on any of that. So the part that I loved about the J. Donovan financial brand was the fiduciary obligation piece, right? It had a very strong, rooted in fiduciary principles, which is, a huge part of our brand. The piece that it was lacking was, something marketable, something fun, like who are we actually? Because if you meet us, we're not stuffy insurance financial people. I mean, we are financial insurance people, but we're not stuffy. And we needed a brand that, was a little bit more all encompassing of our value proposition. So we started to talk about a rebrand. I started to talk about it right away, but that wasn't the focus the first 5 years of our business. It really was, building a team, building the business, because we started from scratch, right? And I can't tell you how many people told me when I decided to leave Colonial and go and partner with Donovan, oh, you need to go and work at a big brokerage. You need to, cut your teeth, or whatever they say. You will fail, like all sorts of things.
I mean, everything you're saying is what they say. I mean, it's patent textbook 101 of what you have to say because you are an asshole. Anyway, sorry.
Yeah, right. And basically that I needed like a university before I could start my own agency. And both Donovan and I don't respond well to anybody ever telling us what to do. So we went ahead and did it anyway. And then, 2 years ago, we were like, all right, we're ready. Like, we got clients all over the country. It's become, we're speaking nationally. Things are where we want them to be with, internal operations, processes, procedures. Now we need a brand that reflects that. So we were speaking with Kevin and Wendy actually at Q4I. And
also,
they took
shameless plug. Kevin's been on the show too. Go, Kevin. Anyway, sorry, go ahead.
So they walked us through our rebrand process. It took about a year, and we did not take any of the process lightly. We actually ended up revamping our entire team according to the values. So it was almost like we had to slow down a little bit when we were going through the rebrand and really reevaluate, like, are we who we say we are? Are we who we want to be, right? Like really deep, kind of troubling questions if you can't answer them honestly and, in alignment. So we did a lot of restructuring internally before we launched the rebrand, so that when it was ready to go and when we felt like it was where it needed to be, we were aligned all around. So we launched Ethos Benefits. The picking a name was one of the most painstaking processes we've ever gone through. But it did come to me in the middle of the night. So I would wake up at, wee hours of the morning with all these ideas for names. And then the next morning I'd go to Donovan and be like, all right, so we've got, this,
Right.
He'd be like, nope. And he, man, a few words, but very intentional with his words, and nothing was speaking to him. And that was the hard part, right? About the partnership, is like, it had to represent both of us, and with us being so different. So we landed on Ethos. Ethos is the guiding principle or character of an organization or a person. And ours is, if something can be done better, it should be. And I think we could all agree that employee benefits can be done better. So it was a pretty easy transition getting into the rebrand.
That's a cool story. I'm a big fan of Wendy and Kevin's. Wendy, I had on Kevin Curran on the podcast, and he talked about the rebrand, and I talked to him many times. He's a good friend, and she helped. I'm sure Kevin too, but she helped help them go from a mouthful, literally a mouthful, to sorry, Kevin, love you, buddy, to salt margin. So she is a wizard. A magician when it comes to that. So I'm so excited for you. That's so cool. So when you were going through that rebranding process, because there's a lot of people listening that may go through that, I've thought about it. When you went through that, did you ever feel like you needed to, this is a weird question, but did you ever feel like you needed to to slow down on your existing marketing to obtain new business? Like, were you okay if that was the case, being flat or even lesser sales during that year, that process? Or, I don't know if that even makes sense as a question, but I feel like it could be a thing.
Yeah, we definitely had to slow down the marketing, the everyday prospecting and the push to really get intentional about it, right? What's interesting though is, yeah, I think if we were to look at like the months that we were very focused on the rebrand, like early on, I would venture to say that, outbound prospecting and the close ratios were probably less. But what's really interesting is since the rebrand, if you look at, total revenue and growth, we've acquired clients that are so aligned with who we are that, those few months of maybe less are a drop in the bucket, like not even relevant, completely worth the investment in terms of time and money. Having a brand that people don't have to question. J. Donovan Financial, are you 401k? You do retirement? No, we're fiduciary based benefit advisors, right? Like that whole conversation takes time and energy. And now it's just very clear and it's very, it speaks to people. So we're so excited about it. So I would just say, if you're out there and you're considering doing it, be ready for some torture. Like, I don't know how else to say it.
You call Wendy. That's step one. Like, just stop everything and call Q4.
Is magnificent. Like, I cannot say enough about her and her team taking us through this process. I love this kind of stuff. Donovan, not so much. So she was able to get us both to a place where, everything was consistent. We were both totally bought in. And now we hire to our brand. So we only hire according to the 4 values that we've outlined. We bring on clients or let go of clients if we have to, if they're out of alignment with those values. It literally is the foundation of absolutely everything that we do. It's amazing.
So I'm super excited to hear that that it's worked out with respect to new business and making sure that your mission is aligned with your clients and your prospects. You mentioned earlier that you even got to the point where you were like, basically, sorry, no offense, but bye to some of your employee team members because they weren't well aligned, which is really hard to do from a personal perspective, but even from a business perspective, because that is truly taking a step backward. I want to move that question into clients. Have you ever, during that process, prior or now, have you ever had a client where you're like, look, you are not, I use the term wow versus ow. I stole that from Neapolitan.
I love that.
I didn't create it, but it's amazing. So, I only want wow clients, people that are amazing, that I love taking their calls and emails and communicating with. I don't want ouch, you suck. I don't want those types of clients that annoy me and hurt my team culture. So have you ever had to basically fire a client, or even better, have you ever prospected a client that you thought would be perfect? They want to work with you, and after due diligence, you realize, you're not going to be a wow client, so I don't want your business anyway. Has that ever happened? Do you have a story? Can you share what would happen if that happened in the future?
Yeah, we've got a few of those. There's some stuff in the works that's really exciting, and I can't really announce it just yet.
Exclusive?
Yeah, when it is though, I'll come to you first. Of really like our business taking it to the next level in terms of this alignment that we're speaking of. So we'll be announcing that hopefully in the next couple months. But it is not easy. It is not easy to turn away business. It's not easy to fire your MVP. But these are all things that we have done. And unfortunately, we've done them multiple times, and they have paid off in dividends. Firing clients is especially difficult in the first few years of your business. If you would have told me in the first 3 years that that's something that we would have done, I would have laughed, but the cost of being associated with a company that, doesn't have the same values as you do, or doesn't see the value of your value proposition, you're going to burn out your team. You're going to lose confidence in yourself and your own strategies. There are so many reasons to just cut and run. And you do it obviously professionally. There is a class and an etiquette that goes along with these types of conversations. And then you always have something better lined up for them, right? Like if maybe they would do better with like a fully insured shop where we're not going to be, challenging some of the traditional mindsets. Like, we'll hear things like, well, the claims are the claims. Okay. So we start with education, right? And then if we're hitting roadblock after roadblock after roadblock, and what we're doing is, all we're able to do every year is bring them a Blue Cross Blue Shield, put them on Employee Navigator, and try to improve some communications, that doesn't excite us anymore. We'll meet them where they're at, right? And we'll walk that path with them. But if there is true misalignment of values, if my team is being treated poorly, yeah, we've walked away, and it sucks. It's awful. And, it's easier now because it doesn't happen often, because it's very obvious if you're going to be going through a discovery call with us or our alignment presentation where we're showing you our solutions and whatnot. Clients either gravitate towards it, or it's not their cup of tea yet. When they are in a dire position, though, in a couple of years, we usually end up hearing back from them. But yeah, no, it's a process. And I think it says a lot about where you are in your business. And if you are upholding your values, if you can take kind of strong, decisive action like that.
I mean, I couldn't agree more. And to me, I'm not bragging because it's not something to quote unquote be proud of per se, but I've had to let go a number of clients, large and small. Who would have thought that, I'd want to proactively let go of a 2,500 life case that I had for years and years and years, but their executive management changed and culture changed, and it was affecting my company culture, and it wasn't worth it anymore, honestly. So a couple steps back to take a million leaps forward was well worth it. And my thing I always tell folks is, if you have a challenge, you have a problem, yell at me. You can curse me out, I don't care, but don't ever do that to my team. My team's culture has to be at an all-time high, and that will affect them. I'm not saying it won't affect me, but it's got to be, I can be a sounding board if there's a challenge, but don't ever do it to a team member. Look, as we wrap up, and I appreciate everybody listening, by all means, if you want to get in touch with Chelsea, you have a question, thought, idea, feel free to drop it in the comment section. She's very active on LinkedIn. You can message her. Don't sell her anything. She doesn't need to be sold. But if you want to message her, hey, great interview. It was great getting to know you. I'm sure she would love that. If you have a question, right, you're trying to grow your business, I'm sure she would be glad to try to help if she can.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
No sales. Don't slide into the DM and sell. It's ridiculous. Anyway, as we wrap up, I did want to ask about something you're truly passionate about that I think you created. And it's something to do with golf in the Orlando area. It's called LEGS, LEGS. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yes, LEGS is the Ladies Executive Golf Society. I'm the founder for the Orlando chapter, but there is another chapter, a woman named Jillian Foss is the founder of all the LEGS, and she's incredible. But I started the Orlando chapter, and
I see. Okay.
The reason that I started the Orlando chapter was I was really tired of men going out and golfing on Friday afternoons and taking their clients and doing that kind of stuff, and me feeling like I wasn't good enough or I didn't belong on the golf course, right? So more than just taking a lesson or going out with Donovan and golfing, I wanted to create a community that could empower women in positions like I am, executive level women that want to build relationships, build their golf game, and just actually have fun doing it and not be mansplained to, with all due respect, by their husbands or whoever it is that they're out golfing with. And ultimately, close deals, drive revenue, lift each other up. There's no freedom like financial freedom for women. So, that is my passion, is growing that community and mentoring those along the way and just building women in every regard possible. And LEGS is an amazing avenue to do that.
And I remember seeing something you posted on LinkedIn. You don't, if you're a female leader or executive in that area and you want to join, you don't have to golf. You don't have to own golf clubs. You could just go and enjoy company and network and maybe drink wine. Am I accurate? You
are spot on. So I will, it's hilarious. I am so bad at golf. For being a Division I athlete, a very competitive person, I hate being bad at stuff. I am terrible at golf, so bad. So it's actually hilarious because people will come and they'll be like, hey, and then they'll see me play and they're like, oh, wow, no, you mean it. You can suck and it's fun. So that's awesome. It's not about being good at golf. It's not about showing up and being the best. It's honestly about coming out and learning. You don't need clubs. You do need a good attitude. Don't be,
Debbie Downer.
no Debbie Downers up at legs, but we also happen to drink a lot of wine. So
That's fair. That's fair. I was thinking of it, and then I realized my question is really, I mean, it's dumb anyway, but I was going to say you need to start less for softball. The G can be replaced for softball, but less doesn't have the same ring to it, and then it kind of devalues the whole lady thing. So never mind. Again, I was thinking that through, and I'm like, that's not going to work.
no.
But the intent is a good idea.
I love it. And Eric, I have a proposition for you.
Yeah.
So we're going to be rolling out our Man Ambassador program, but it's called Balls, Brothers Advocating for Ladies and Legs. And
Man,
now with the
I have
podcast,
balls.
you can be, and you could be our inaugural Balls member.
I am
So
all in. I love
we'll
it.
get you a hat.
Big time. Yes, I will love my balls hat. I will rock it and talk about it all day long. All right. I mean, I don't know. You said it all. This was amazing. Appreciate you coming on. I know it was tough to get on your schedule. You're super busy. Donovan, you should be in the spotlight more, man. You have a welcome, open invitation to come on and share your story anytime you want, my friend. It was great to see you guys. We all just hung out in the Benefits Pro conference in Atlanta. The time we're recording this, that is, it was just a couple weeks ago. And that was amazing. For anybody that needs or wants to get in touch with Chelsea or Donovan, find them on LinkedIn. Go to their website, ethosbenefits.com. Check it out. It's a great new site. Kudos to you and to your Q4I coaches, Wendy and Kevin. And look, I mean, I just show up and talk and ask some questions and have
You're
some
awesome, Eric.
and balls.
You are amazing. Lifting so many people up.
Oh, thank you. But I don't do anything. I'm just asking questions and having fun. So for everybody behind the scenes at the Rockstars Rocking podcast, I'm Eric Silverman. That's Chelsea Ryckis, was, and always will be. And I appreciate everybody listening. Thank you so much. Without you listening, we wouldn't, well, I don't know. I'd probably still show up and have some fun talking, but more fun if you're listening. So appreciate you doing that, and stay tuned for another Rockstars Rocking episode next week. Thanks, Chelsea.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for tuning into this episode of the Rockstars Rocking podcast. If you haven't done so already, make sure you're subscribed to the show wherever you consume podcasts. And if you feel so inclined, please leave us a review. 5 stars would totally rock. Until next time, Rockstars, keep rocking.